Hey guys, welcome back. This is my top 5 nostalgic video games. These are games that I just loved to play as a kid, and I loved them so much that they've followed me through to my adult life, and I think of them, and it just gives me those warm fuzzies. And these aren't necessarily good games, so much as they are just, well, those games that give me the fuzzies. Anyway, let's get down to it with number 5. So number 5 is a favorite, not because it's good. It's actually the worst game on this list. It's just, I was the right demographic for it. I was a huge fan of the character who came from this anime that I watched every Saturday morning, and it just, my cousin and I both were in the group. We're both 12 years old, and he tells me, oh, this really dark game came out, and there's swearing and guns, and I'm just like, oh yeah, we should play that game. So he goes out to get it, and we loved it. And of course, I'm talking about Shadow the Hedgehog. Yeah. I still have this game. I have the GameCube port. The story is shit. It controls like ass, and whoever directed the voice actor should be slapped upside the head because they had a pretty damn good cast, but the entire cast sounds like shit. Not the voice actor's fault, they were just doing their job, but damn. Shadow the Hedgehog, a lot of people consider it to be that turning point in the series when things started to go downhill. I've heard some people say that, what was it, Sonic Heroes was that turning point? I think Sonic Heroes came out before Shadow the Hedgehog, though. Regardless. Oh god, this game's bad. It controls like ass. Like, Shadow has butter under his feet at all times. But sometimes I get in the mood to play it, and I'll play a few levels, and it just makes me smile. It's not a game that I can binge play, because I'm not necessarily great at it, but I still have it, and I will occasionally put it in my Wii and play it and say, oh yeah, it reminds me of better times-ish. Actually, no, my childhood was not better times-ish in comparison to my current adult situation. It was actually a little worse. Anyway, Shadow the Hedgehog was fun when I was a kid, but, oh gosh. It's amazing what you like when you're a child, I swear. Number 4. Ironically enough, Civilization 4. I did not make that choice on purpose, that's just how it fell. So, there's actually a funny story behind this. I used to go to a babysitter. It was my cousin's grandmother on his dad's side, so there was no relation. And we would play Civ 4 at his house, and then we would go to her house and play Civ 4 outside. So, like, he would be Abraham Lincoln, and I would be Cleopatra or Joan of Arc, and we would separate the backyard. And it's like, this is France, and he'd be like, well, this is America, because he always had to be America. And we would fight each other, like, fight-ish. And by fight, I mean I would just yell at him, my army's coming for you, and he's like, yeah, well, my army took out most of your army. And I'm like, that's not fair. That was basically what we did. We were very little. It was fun. It was really fun. I recall many a sunburn that I received because I refused to come indoors because we were just having so much fun playing Civilization. Number 3. Fable. Fable. God, I love Fable. I love Fable so much. Alright, so I said this in... What video did I say this in? My review of Fable Blood of Heroes. I said that growing up, I grew up in a low-income family, so video games weren't something that I could just magically go out and buy. And the only reason I got to play Fable was my uncle Greg, gave us his Xbox, and this was one of the games that was on it, or was with it. This was one of the first games I ever beat. And when you're a kid, Fable can be pretty tough, and I remember that battle with Jack of Blades was intense. As an adult, though, I blew right through it. I'm like, how the hell did I find this hard? And the funny thing is, I actually have that Xbox copy. I still have it today. It's scratched to shit, and it doesn't run anymore, but I still have it for, I guess, I don't know, posterity's sake? I don't think posterity's the right word. I just have it for nostalgia's sake. We'll say that. This is a game that was incredibly overhyped, but I never saw the hype, because by the time I got to play it, it had already been out for a while. I loved Fable, playing it as a kid. Occasionally I get in the mood to play it again, but when it comes to the Fable series, I usually play 2 or 3. And surprisingly, I know this is anarchy, but I actually prefer Fable 3. Fable 2 is technically better, but there's something about Fable 3. I love the combat. The combat in Fable 3 is fluid. You can change from like swords to guns to magic, or willpower, pardon, and you can do that just on the fly. Battling in that game is super fucking fun. I absolutely love it. Anyway, let's get on to number 2. Number 2, Pokemon Silver. Alright, so you have to sit back. There's a story behind this one. So as I said, I grew up in kind of a poor home. So one thing that I wanted more than anyone else was a Game Boy Color. Pokemon was huge when I was in grade school, and I couldn't play it. I'd occasionally play my cousin's copy of it, but it was his, and he wouldn't let me have it, obviously. So my dad asked me one year, what do you want for your birthday? And this was after the Game Boy Advance came out, but being used to kind of living in a low-income home, I told my dad I just wanted the Game Boy Color. I wanted the console from the previous generation, because I didn't want to ask for anything too expensive. And I told myself, it's like, okay, if I can get a Game Boy Color, then I could save up money and eventually get Pokemon Silver, or Gold, or just Pokemon in general. At the time, I didn't even really know what Gen 1 and Gen 2 were, I just wanted to play Pokemon. So, 2 weeks later, lo and behold, package shows up at the house, I open it up, and it's a Game Boy Advance. I nearly shit myself. I just, oh my god, I still have that Game Boy Advance. I have it, what, like 18 years later, 15 years later? I think it was 8 at the time, maybe 25. I can't math, not off the top of my head while I'm recording. But yeah, that Game Boy Advance, I still have it. It doesn't run anymore. Like when you press the start button, it shuts itself off. But I love that damn thing. And I took it to my cousin, right? Because he had a Game Boy Advance too. And I wanted to brag and be like, I got a Game Boy Advance. And he told me, he's like, hey, do you know you can play Game Boy Color games on that? And he came back and he had a copy of Gold and Silver, and he told me to pick one. And I got Pokemon Silver. And just, as a kid, I swear to God, I almost started crying. Because I really wanted to play Pokemon so bad, and I finally got that chance. I will remember, till the day I die, that first time I put that game in the back of my Game Boy Advance and turned it on, and the ding of the Pokemon Color that came across, Pokemon Color, the Game Boy Color ding. I loved it. I played that game until the battery backup died in it, non-stop, over and over and over. And if I were to do like a top 10 favorite video games, this would probably be number 3 or number 2. The Pokemon Gen 2 is amazing. Nowadays I tend to play Crystal, but Pokemon Silver was my first introduction to Gen 2 and my first introduction to Pokemon in general. I'll always hold it very dear to my heart. Granted, Gen 3 and Gen 4 were also pretty good, but Gen 1 was the first. It was definitely the first, and I will always love it for that, regardless of, I don't know if it's really aged well. I don't think the original Gen 2 is aged well. I gotta love it, always will. Anyway, before I get to number 1, I do have some honorable mentions. Final Fantasy VIII. Okay, so this was a game I played a little bit of on the PS1. And it holds a special place in my heart because it was one of the first games I ever played. And I wasn't good at it, and I got stuck very early on in the game, but I played it again as an adult, and it's okay. Like, the junction and the magic thing just confuses the shit out of me, even as an adult. And this is one of those games that, if you do one minor thing wrong, you could just fuck up your entire game. And I'm sorry, but that annoys the shit out of me. Maybe it's because I'm more of an open-world RPG kind of person, but that's the same reason why I don't like Morrowind. Because if you make the mistake of exploring and killing a bug in a cave, you've just fucked up like 3 different fucking storylines. Alright, next up is Harvest Moon for the Game Boy Color. I didn't even know there was a Harvest Moon for the SNES. I have it on my Wii now because of the Wii eShop, but I got a copy for the Game Boy Color, bought it at a garage sale, and you'd think it'd be boring just planting crops and feeding cows and shit, but actually it's very time consuming, and it's real easy to lose track of time playing it. I remember putting it in my Game Boy Advance and playing, I look up and I've been playing it for like 3 hours, and I think to myself, yeah, you know what, it's almost at the end of winter, and then Grandpa's gonna be coming and checking on it, so I'm gonna just play for another hour and make sure I get at least 4 cows before winter's over. Next is Sims and Sims Busting Out. The only reason these two are an honorable mention is I didn't want more than one Sims game on the list. These were games I remember playing at the middle of the night. I'd be all wrapped up next to a little kerosene heater in the living room, playing these games. And my mom's husband used to always tell me, "Oh, those are so pointless. You're just living life. Can't you live life outside of the game?" It's like, yeah, but I can pretend that life's decent if I'm playing the fucking video game, James. Jesus. And then finally, as I said, Pokemon Gen 3 and 4, honorable mentions. Gen 3 was my middle school jam. And then Gen 4 I got towards the tail end of high school. Both games were fun. It was Sapphire and Diamond were the two that I played a lot of. Nowadays I play Platinum. Just, that's the definitive version, Platinum. But I still play Sapphire. I've played Emerald. And I like Emerald. It is the definitive version of Gen 3, but I just prefer Sapphire. Anyway, with that out of the way, now let's get down to the number one on this list. My number one most nostalgic video game is Urbz Sims in the City. Okay, so about 90% of you are going, wait, what? And then the other 10% of you are fans of the Sims series. But then that 10%, about 90% of that 10% is going, wait, what? So, let me explain. Think back to the early 2000s. There was a period in time where the Black Eyed Peas were actually good. Well, okay, decent. And at one point, Maxis and EA approached the Peas and said, "Hey, you guys are hip with the kids. You're hip with the children's. And we make games that people like-ish when we aren't creating stupid paywalls anyway. So how about you make a game with us? You get the popularities, we get the monies, and it's just a win-win." This game, I have beaten this game on every single platform it's come out on. I have no idea why I was so obsessed with it as a kid. I even beat the handheld port. This is a game that, honestly, I feel other people should play. It has some technical issues. The biggest one is it can freeze up while loading, and it can freeze up while saving, which will corrupt your save data. So if you want to play it, I recommend, if you're playing it on like the PS2 or the GameCube, to have two separate memory cards, and then just transfer your save data over to one, so if you lose it on one, you still have it on the other. But basically what you have to do is you just create a sim, and you go from district to district, you have relationships, and you have to, build a reputation. And there's customization out the ass. This game is like infinitely customizable. You have 3 different apartments that you can rent, and you can create cliques and cause like drama within the cliques. It's basically like you're playing a reality TV show. It's oddly addicting. And of course it's a Sims game, so it's wacky. I think the funniest thing that I can think of is there's a job where you have to make firecrackers. And so I'm making these firecrackers, and this dude comes up, he's like, "Hey, look," and he lights one inside, it blows up, he catches on fire. He's freaking out because he's on fire. Everyone around him is freaking out because he's on fire. So I stop what I'm doing and try to help out, and as soon as I stop my job, the boss starts yelling at me like, "Hey, why aren't you doing your job?" And I'm thinking to myself as I'm playing the game, dude, there's a guy on fire literally 2 feet away from me. I'm trying to stop him from dying. You can't let me stop making the things that caught him on fire to begin with. They obviously, when I say they, I mean Maxis and EA, definitely had a lot of, they definitely had a lot of hope for this game. It was released on multiple consoles. And it's one of the Xbox games that when you got a 360, you could play it on the 360. It was on that list of games that you could play on the 360. So they clearly had a lot of hope for it. And not many people talk about it. But yeah, there was something about this game that I was obsessed with it. To this day, I have no idea why. It is fun though, it's very fun. If you're a fan of the Sims series, and you like the whole, handheld type of games where there's different goals you have to accomplish, and if you like customization, and you like reality TV shows, and you like all of that in one package, then I think you'll really like Sims in the City. I know I did. Again, I beat it on basically every freaking console. Every time I got, a GameCube, oh, gotta get Sims in the City. Got an Xbox, I gotta get Sims in the City. Had a Game Boy Advance, oh, there's a GBA port, I gotta get that. I even got the DS port There was a DS port too, which was the exact same as the GBA port. But I got it because I'm addicted to Sims. I have a serious problem, actually. I should probably get that checked out. Anyway, I have 2 more lists coming at you guys. I have the top 5 nostalgic songs, that's coming out next week, and then, of course, my top 20 favorite SpongeBob episodes. So, I'll see you guys then.